Welcome to episode 26 of the Rex Chapman Show with Josh Hopkins. Episode 26,
cool,
Josh.
Not super cool or anything.
Super cool. No, super cool. Super bearded. Super bearded.
Yeah. Super.
My man's shooting a movie coming up. I'm so proud of you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
So proud. I can't wait till you get back on the horse.
Very good.
Yeah, 26. Any famous 26s we know? Episode 26. Kyle Korver.
Wow, good one.
Anybody else?
I know we're missing.
Spencer Dinwiddie.
Wow.
Those are the only two I know.
When I try and remember, I remember numbers and stuff by players. And it's like, oh, yeah, Bo Jackson, Jordan in the Olympics.
Same.
With 26, I usually go, that's ESPN. Because when we first got cable,
that's right.
It was channel 26.
26.
ESPN. So
right.
I still to this day, I'm like, oh, it's a locker 26 ESPN. I got the ESPN locker.
Forgot about that. Forgot all about it. NBA training camps started up. I actually am in Phoenix and went to the Suns training camp this morning. They look excellent. They look like a deep team, maybe the deepest team in the NBA. Look plenty scary. That being said,
anybody come in a little chubby?
Nope, not a soul. But I do, got some vaccination news in the league. Some guys have been sounding off. I saw Dame Lillard came out yesterday. Couldn't have been more proud of that guy's message. Robin Lopez as well. And then we've had some other guys that were kind of on the other side of things. So I think that's going to be a topic here for a little while anyway.
It's a difficult standoff,
yeah.
For sure. And it's obviously a polarizing subject. So we're going to hear about that for a while.
I think we will too. And then we also have Ben Simmons not in camp, says he's not coming to camp, wants nothing more to do with the Sixers. I guess Daryl Morey and Doc have both said they're optimistic that, something can be resolved. I'm not that optimistic about it.
Yeah, I'm not either. I saw Doc on an interview, and he's just such an intelligent and great orator. You could see how he could talk to him and say, "Hey, man, we're going to do this and that and this, and I'm sorry, it's come out in public in this way." And I think part of it is, it's just Ben's feelings are hurt. They were shopping him. Everyone's talked about it, and I understand, but when push comes to shove and you start losing that money, and maybe I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and I hope he plays somewhere.
I do too. I hope it's not one of these standoffs where it's just billionaire, millionaire, and nobody really is going to win that one. Well, the billionaire is.
Let's play big bank, take little.
Yeah. So I do hope. I feel like the Philly ship has sailed for Ben. And look, Philly's not for everybody. And I'm a Ben Simmons fan. Yes, he's got a issue shooting the ball and with his confidence and all of that. Other than that, he has no holes in his game. He's arguably the best defender, pound for pound, in the NBA. And then the fact that he's a point guard is just insane. So I just want to watch him play ball. And if that needs to be somewhere else, let it be somewhere else.
It's not just like he's a point guard because he can, dribble and he's a special passer.
Special athlete.
Next. Yeah.
He's really long. He's big. He's a guy that I like. As a fan, I would go pay to watch Ben Simmons play, even though, he's not a shooter. He does a lot of the things that he checks a lot of boxes for me with, things that I like to see out of a basketball player. So
much of that has to be mental. There has to be an aspect that can be worked on and fixed. It's
still young, man. He's still so young.
Knob block, and that would be so hard to be out there and be like an all-star caliber player. And the one thing you can't do is shoot.
Yeah. But again, still young, man. He's still young, These guys, we talked about it. Yeah. Got a great guest today. Josh?
Did you read anything this week?
Oh,
book club.
I didn't get around to. I didn't get anything this week, buddy. Did you?
Well, I actually read something. Oh, that was a TV guide. No, I didn't. That's been book club. Okay. What we got this week?
We've got Stan Van Gundy. Stan Van Gundy. Stan and I go way back. He was just was when brushing up on him recently, and it dawned on me that his rookie year in the NBA as a coach was the year I was traded to Miami. So we spent 1 year together. It was Stan's rookie year in the league, and one of the best years that I had learning the game of basketball. Stan's a good man, and I think you're going to enjoy talking to him. Let's get to it. Stanley Allen Van Gundy. Welcome, Stan. Welcome, Coach.
Wow. Usually when my full name gets used, it was my mom. You know that. You know this. Most kids know this. And you're in big trouble at that point.
That's right.
Not ever said in a good way. If you get the full name, you screwed up big time and you're in trouble.
Very true. I think he's our first coach, right, Josh?
What?
He's our first coach on the show. No, we had Rick.
Yeah, we've had
a couple, but normally we have coaches who aren't fired. I like my coaches not normally fired. That's how I like my coaches, non-fired coaches.
Oh, man, I've been fired 4 times, so I'm at the other extreme. I said to my brother right away when it happened, I said, how many people have been fired 4 times that you know? And twice at the University of Wisconsin and at New Orleans in 1 year. You know how much they have to hate you to fire you in 1 year? Like, that's no easy accomplishment. I only had 7 months, and I got them to hate me so much. They fired me in 7 months. That's just not easy.
If you tried to do it, you probably couldn't.
No, exactly. I mean, at least in Orlando and Detroit, it took them 5 years and 4 years before they said enough of this dude. So those are big accomplishments.
Yeah, but both you and Skiles, you have a shelf life, right? You got a shelf life, and it's maybe.
I didn't even get put up on the shelf this year. That's not a shelf life. I mean, that's like the package came. You didn't even open it and put it up on the shelf yet before they got rid of me. So, hell.
Oh, man.
I'll tell you this, though. If you want to put me in the boat with Scott Skiles, I got no problem being there. That would be an honor for me. There's not very many people in the game that I have greater respect for than Scott as a player or a coach. I mean,
you and me both.
Just a human being, totally honest guy, up front. I mean, I've never been in the same sentence.
You are. You guys remind me a lot of each other.
Gladly be there with him.
You guys remind me a lot of each other. And I don't know if I ever told you this. Scott we were playing together at the time in Washington. He coached me at the end of my career, which was hilarious. But we were playing in Washington, and it was right around the time that teams were getting their own planes. Well, we didn't have that in Washington with Abe Poland's Bullets. We were flying on big commercial planes, where you'd have 3 and 4 rows to yourself. And we've been on a West Coast trip, and we're flying back east, and we had a hard fought game. And I go back, there's no lights on the plane. Everybody's asleep. But back in one little section, lights are on. I go back there, and Skiles, he's got this ratty, looks like a binder from 8th grade, and it's got notes and stats and all kinds of, and he's back there and he's got his pen and he's doing like this. I said, dude, what are you doing? He looked at me and goes, I'm going to be a coach, man. And I kind of just kept on walking, but that was his whole mission. And he'd been keeping that notebook since probably middle school or high school. Just amazing. One of the best. Yeah. I want to tell you this before we get going. I want to tell you, I guess I'd forgotten that your rookie year in the league would have been the year that we spent together in Miami.
Yep.
Well, I just got to tell you, you're one of my favorite coaches ever. it was one of the best experiences. We were only together for a year, but I learned more in that year of basketball than I had probably since college, just technically. And it was an unbelievable experience. And I'm thrilled that we've remained friends all these years. You're a terrific coach, and I liken you to Skiles all the time.
It was that for me too. It was a great education for me. I'd been 14 years in college, but the NBA game was intimidating to me, to say the least. And I learned a lot, obviously, from Pat Riley. I mean, obviously, you learned a lot. But I've said this all along. I've learned more from players in the league even than I have from coaches, because, guys who have played a long time, I mean, you don't go a long time in this league and have success just on athletic ability and even skill. I mean, you have to have a mind for the game, and, being able to listen, to veteran guys that year taught me so much on how the game had been played. And I remember, when we got Tim Hardaway, and, I mean, Timmy just took my understanding of how to run a pick and roll, how to teach a pick and roll to a whole new level. I mean, I'd had it explained from a coaching standpoint, but for a guy of that talent and here's how I set my guy up. And when I come off the pick, here are my reads. I mean, I've learned so much from players over the years, and certainly that first year was all new. So I learned a lot from that entire group, plus had some good times. That was a group with some good sense of humor. And I've said many times, your game against the Bulls, I was in the league for a long time as a head coach and an assistant. I've said this many times when you weren't around. That's the most memorable game to me that I've ever been a part of, because the Bulls were so good, so good. And we had just made the trades. I mean, we didn't have anybody.
Didn't have anybody.
7 guys. Tony Smith came in, didn't even have a walkthrough with us, and played the entire game at the point. Yep. You played Jeff Malone, who we took off of ice. Played all year, played and had like 16 points. Vashawn Leonard came in,
Absolutely. Made a couple of buckets.
But you were just making everything. And I remember Scotty Robertson, in the second quarter of that game, when you'd made a couple in a row, he said, "Nope, the stars are aligned tonight. There's no way we're losing this." And the whole crowd was bowing down to you. Look, I mean, that was a long time ago.
It was.
And I'll never forget that game. It was just amazing.
Was that the game that you came home and Zeke asked you to tell that story to him?
Yeah, well, I came home after that game that night, and I'd gone. Zeke, my son, who's 28 now, I left the house and he had a Jordan uniform on. He's 3. He's 3. I get back from the game and go in and wake him up, and I pull him out of his bed, and we go downstairs and watching TV, and he goes looks at the TV, and it dawns on him. He says, "You played the Bulls." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you win?" I said, "Yep." And he took off running back upstairs and went to bed crying. He was upset that we won. We beat Michael's team.
Hey, I also remember that year. I mean, I know we don't want to just go down memory lane, me and you. But I remember late in the year, we were playing in Charlotte. It might have been the last game of the year, but we had to win to get into the playoffs.
Oh, that's right.
And I remember coming out of the locker room, and you said to me, "Stan, this is the first important NBA game I've ever played in." I'll never forget that.
Man, I can't believe you remember that. Yeah, it was Charlotte or Milwaukee. That's my recollection. And we did have to win to get in to be 41-41. And I'd never been on a team in the NBA that had won more than like 25 games. So that was huge. That was huge. And then how bad did the Bulls beat us in 3? Like a JV team, right?
Yeah, they were pretty good at that time.
They weren't bad.
Yeah, they weren't bad. And but nonetheless, I think sometimes, years like that sort of get lost in the history of things. But if you look at what happened to the Miami Heat over the years, and it took them a long time. I mean, Pat was there a long time before he got a championship. But this thing they now almost nauseatingly refer to as heat culture. I mean, it gets to be a little much. But it started in that year. It really did. It started in that year where there started to be some real pride around that.
Well, you're exactly right. And then I'd go back to that year. I'd get a literal DVD slipped under my hotel room door that would go, and that meant Eric Spoelstra had left me a DVD to watch on all my screw ups for the game. Now coaching the team. Amazing, right?
Well, we used to do the same thing with scouting reports. Slide them under the door.
Yep.
And so I had to do that. And then, you can relate to this, but you go to a couple of doors every time and you can't get it under the door because the towel's under the door. and then you go to guys and like, yo, man, like I gotta, the towel. Oh, yeah, no, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I'm like, listen, like I know I'm some suburban white guy, but I ain't stupid. So I know what happened and you know what happened. Just let me, I said, I just don't want to get in trouble. I got to get the report to you. That's the whole, I don't know why the towel was under the door. Really? I can think of a reason. That was great. That went on for years. The whole time I worked for Pat, that's how we did scouting reports.
Yep.
We always have those guys, and it just got to be a joke. Like,
Hey, how did you, at what age did you know you were just eaten up with basketball? And how many fights did you and Jeff get in, just in the backyard growing up, playing hoops?
Yeah, well, I wanted to coach probably from the time I was in about the 8th grade,
and your dad was a coach.
My dad was a coach like yours. So I'd grown up around it, but I really wanted to be, when I was a young kid, I really wanted to be a baseball player. And baseball's really good in California. And so summer after my 7th grade year, I'm playing Pony League baseball, and I hit under 100 and struck out in over half of my at-bats. And I realized, like, this is probably not going far. Forget making it to the major leagues. This ain't going to high school in this town. And so I'll just concentrate on basketball. The good thing about having a dad as a coach is even though I was good in my league and everything else, I was aware of the bigger world of basketball. I knew I wasn't going anywhere as a player. 5'8", slow, can't jump, not a solid combination.
A lot of moxie, though. A lot of moxie.
Yeah, there you go. But moxie will only take you so far. And so I said, I know I want to coach. I'll take the playing as far as I can. But there was always a mindset to coach from there. And yeah, Jeff and I probably like all brothers, a lot of wars and battles. And
when did he get to the age he was as good as you were, or where he gave you, because there was 3 years different?
Yeah, I was 3 years ahead of him in school. I'm like 2.5 years older. And really, like, through my high school, I could still, handle him. I was a senior. He was a freshman. And he was, small and skinny, and I could handle him pretty good. And as a matter of fact, the only time we ever played together was in summer league in high school. And I remember one night, we had played, we won a game, we come back. And this is an age, like this is 1976. So, it's still the phone on the wall. There's no cell phone or anything.
Yeah.
Well, later that night, I come out of the shower and my brother's on the phone, and I don't know who he's talking to at the time. It ended up being one of my grandfathers. And he said, yeah, we won. And they must have asked, well, how'd you guys do? And he said, yeah, we combined for 30. Well, I had 28. He had one bucket. So we combined for 30. But by the time he got to his junior year in high school, senior year in high school, he was pretty clearly a better player. I mean, he was a really good, small college Division III player. I was
true point guard. He was a point guard.
Very much a pass first. I mean, I was a better scorer, but probably just if you throw it up there enough times, the ball's got to go in some. I remember my dad, where I was in high school. I mean, I remember my dad could rarely come to a game. I don't know if that was your experience too, right? But they had their own thing going on. But on Tuesday afternoons, we would play at 3:30 in the afternoon. So my dad had a day off. He's at one of my games. We play, I think it's my sophomore year in high school, terrible team, but I scored a bunch of points, thought I played really well. I get in the car, my dad looks over at me, he says, I hate watching you play. I said, yeah, okay, well, there you go. Like he said, pass the ball, son. Pass the ball. I was like, okay.
Yeah, man.
Where we were, and then he got Jeff, who would only pass the ball. My dad would be saying, man, you've got to shoot the ball when you're open. Like he couldn't make up his mind.
Were you guys more competitive, you and Jeff, at basketball or talking? Because you both sure can talk. You both sure can win arguments. We've watched it on the air.
Yeah, I'll tell you where we were most competitive growing up was playing ping pong. And he would win all the time, and he would just piss me off because you ever play those guys, like he would never try to hit a winner. Never. He's going to put the ball back. Mm-hmm. Like, and so I don't have his patience. And I think people who've seen us both coach understand that too. I don't have his patience. So we go back and forth. You've hit the ball like 10 times. I'm like, the hell with this. And I'm trying to hit one down his throat and I would miss. And he would end up winning all the time and like never hit a winner. Never.
Yeah, that's a little battle of attrition ping pong. Like, let him mess up.
And then I would get pissed off and we'd get into arguments. And it was all because I couldn't take losing to him, especially the way I lost. And those are my memories with him. So
that's great.
It's so good. Hey, so switch gears for a second. What's going to happen this year? Right now, we've seen in the last couple of days guys talking about the vaccine and getting vaccinated in the NBA. And I'm sure you have an opinion on it all. And you've seen some of the guys who've come out and been a proponent for getting vaccinated. A few others who've come out and said it's pretty much none of anybody's business. What's your opinion, and where do you see this going with the league right now?
Well, I mean, I think it's sort of out of the league's hands as far as guys playing or not playing. I mean, they're going to put restrictions on what guys can do off the floor for guys who aren't vaccinated. But it's the cities, San Francisco and New York. I don't see them backing down. I mean, once they back down on professional athletes, then they've just got to back down on everything. Look, I just don't think you can look at this as a personal decision. I just don't, and people may have their own reasons and everything else. I certainly understand with a lot of Black people traditionally not being able to trust the government, particularly in medical issues when we used to experiment on people without their knowledge. And so that's a generational thing. But nonetheless, it's not a personal decision. It affects other people, for all of us. But for them right now, it also affects their teams, particularly in San Francisco and with the two New York teams. So when there's a threat, like I watched Kyrie's interview yesterday, when there's a threat that, if you don't do this, you're going to miss 41 home games. Well, it's not a personal decision. You're affecting a lot of guys on your own team. And I thought the best comment, it was not made about Kyrie Irving, but the best comment I heard all day yesterday and watching those press conferences and things was James Harden had made a basketball comment about being selfless. And Stephanie Reddy said, there's not a lot of selflessness in this league. And he said, there's not a lot of selflessness in this world. And I think that stuck with me all day today. And I think it's really true. I think our parents' generation was better with that stuff. Now everything's about what's best for me. And I don't think that our parents necessarily thought like that. I do think they had more of, you make sacrifices, not just for your family, but for the community and the country. And there's a collective responsibility here. Now, they weren't great on everything. We've made progress in terms of human rights and racial equality and LGBTQ equality. So I'm not holding them up as a perfect generation by any means. But economically, I thought they stood for a little bit fairer society. And now, like, I just don't know if we don't take care of each other. And this whole idea all along from everybody on this vaccine thing is it's a personal decision. No, it's not. It affects other people. It's not. And the best comments on it have been Kareem's. I mean, Kareem's a smart dude anyway. And, he said today, like, let's just acknowledge if these guys don't want to get vaccinated, they're not team players. I mean, that's just the way it is. And they basically said that themselves. When you say it's a personal decision, if you're Kyrie Irving or Andrew Wiggins, you're denying the fact that it affects those other guys on your team.
He said it so succinctly. I looked it up. He said, there's no room for players who are willing to risk the health and lives of their teammates, the staff, and the fans simply because they are unable to grasp the seriousness of the situation or do the necessary research. I mean, so well said and so compact and just precisely said, because I've been trying to say it, to friends arguing. I'm like, you should get it because other people, and then you can't, and they have to go. Like, he just so smart. He just said it that quickly. And I just think it's brilliant.
Well, he's a brilliant guy, as all of us, who followed his career and everything know. I mean, he's, way beyond basketball. I mean, his commentary on social stuff has been outstanding. So it's no surprise that he'd be the guy to hit it most succinctly here.
Exactly.
Who'd you grow up watching, Coach? Who'd you idolize as a player when you think back, as a teenager, watching college and pro ball, whatever you got to see? Who did you dream of playing like?
I knew pretty early on I wasn't going to play like any of those guys. So,
who did you like watching the most?
Yeah, my guy was Oscar Robertson. He was my guy, and I think my mom's from Indianapolis too, and was in high school roughly at the same time. Well, they were in high school at the same time, and her dad was a big basketball fan, and so they went to high school, and so she saw him play in high school and the whole thing, and so between loving him as a player and her having seen him in high school and everything, I always followed him. And I think now, historically, he's become maybe the most underrated player in the game. Like, when we start talking about the best players ever, we never talk about this guy. And you look back, and after 5 years in the league, so he's played 5 years, he was averaging a triple-double at 30, 10, and 10. 30. Not like 15, 10, 10, And I remember his comment. I forget, Jason Kidd had hit some milestone in triple doubles. And there was a quote the next day from Oscar Robertson who said, if I knew triple doubles were a thing, I would have just gotten one every game.
Exactly. I was going to say the same thing. They weren't think about it. They weren't like, you need one more rebound. Okay. They didn't even know.
No, they didn't know. But what was different at that time, and I think in some ways more fun, Rex, is like, I didn't see these guys play. Yeah. Here's what we got in California, on Saturday. At the time, it was the Pac-8. we got the Pac-8 game of the week, which was whoever UCLA was playing that week. Okay. So I was a big UCLA fan growing up because I watched them every week. And then on Sunday, we got the NBA game of the week. And if it was a 1 o'clock game on the East Coast, which it was a lot, because of, it was a lot of Celtics, Lakers, stuff like that, we'd watch the game at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd head to an open gym, and the guys in the league would play. But so, like with Oscar, was rarely on those games. My parents took me to see him play when he was older and playing for Kansas City, Omaha.
Wow.
Back in those days, so I could see him play. But so they grew up, as you followed these guys, it was all through magazines and newspapers, and they were these larger than life characters because you're reading stories about them. It was almost mythology. Yeah. You didn't get to see them all the time. But when you did, oh my God, so exciting. Like, I remember my dad was a high school coach at the time. My mom was a teacher. So, we weren't poor by any means, but we also didn't have like a lot of extra money. And so when you'd get those couple times a year, you could go to a game and go see the Warriors in the Cow Palace. Oh my God. Like, it was huge. And so in some ways, I don't know, it was more exciting because you couldn't flip on the TV every night and
less access.
Playing tonight. No, you get a chance to maybe see him on TV, an individual team 7-8 times a year, maybe. I mean, hey, look, when I was young, the NBA playoffs were on tape delay, for God's sake. You couldn't even get them in real time. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I don't know, in some ways, I think that added to my excitement about the game. Like, who are these guys, you know?
Sure. I mean, with all this instant gratification nowadays, which is fantastic information in a lot of ways, and we both know it's pros and cons there. But I do feel in a way for these kids that just when I was in junior high, I'd watch MTV all day until Thriller came on. I wanted that video. And then I'd be like, Thriller, hee hee. And then now they'd be like, oh my God, watch it 10 times and never want to watch it again. It's over. The Velvet Rope was there for us. And now it's just not. And I mean, I just flip through anything. I see every NBA highlight or everyone where he dunks well, but it's so easy. I don't even have to search it out.
No, in fact, I was saying to my wife the other day, like, my son is a huge sports fan. Every sport, not hockey as much, though. He's been in Detroit a long time now, so he started to follow it. And he knows everything going on in every pro sport. And I'll bet, unless I was coaching and he was watching that, he never watches an actual game where he sits down and watches a full game. It's just streaming and highlights and then following people's stats and everything. Like, he knows everything about everybody and never sits down and watches a full game. It's different the way people consume sports now.
They know all the stats and the highlights, but they don't watch the game. That's today.
Well, and they also don't, I don't know, like growing up, I grew up in the Bay Area. And so I was a Warriors fan. I was an Oakland A's fan. I was a San Francisco 49er fan, a San Francisco Giant fan. You'd have all those. Players stuck around a little longer on one team, but I knew those teams in depth. Like, you followed them all. And part of it is, again, because everything wasn't on TV. So you had to absorb sports pages and writing. And I actually knew more about people. It wasn't about all the show and the highlights and the glitz and glamour. I mean, it was reading those stories. And I'm grateful that I grew up in the sports landscape I grew up in.
When you, but you guys moved from west to east at some point, right?
When I was going to college. So again, because you're before cell phone data, right?
Yeah.
I went away. I graduated from high school, and I worked some basketball camps as a counselor.
Mhm.
So I go down. I'm in Northern California, and I'm working this camp as a counselor and the whole thing. And I work the week, and I drive back home. I don't know, it's a 4 or 5 hour drive. I drive back home at the end of the week, and I pull up to our house, and there's a for sale sign in the front yard. Like, what the hell is going on? What the hell's going on? It wasn't like mom and dad could just call you on the cell phone and tell you I'm gone for the week. So my dad had taken a job at one of the state schools in New York as the head coach, and the house was on the market. When I came home, I'm like, what's going on? Hey, our house on the market.
It could have been you open the door and it's a family you don't recognize.
1980 or 1977, and we moved east, and I decided. Took me a long time. I didn't decide right then. Took me a long time to come to grips with what I wanted to do, but I ended up going back east to play for him. And then my brother was still in high school, and they moved out there. And the main reason I did it, I know my dad would like to think, is I just had this unbelievable desire to play for him, but it was more, honestly, my brother and I were really close, and I didn't want to be 3,000 miles away for his last 3 years of high school. And so that's when we moved east. Yeah.
How was that culturally, socially, all of that? What was that like? Because I remember doing the opposite, kind of going from east to west for the first time when I got in the NBA. And, it was just different. And what was that like for you as a young person?
Well, I will say, it was different, but and I think you probably understand this too. Like, one of the greatest things about sports is, like, you have a group right away, and you have people you have things in common with. So, I go to college and I don't know anybody, and I have nothing, like, I can't say, oh yeah, I grew up. No, because all these kids were from New York State. Right. I didn't even know the places they were talking about, but I played basketball. So you got a group right there.
Built-in fraternity, right?
Yeah, and my brother came, same thing, into a high school, and he had a group. And so the adjustment was pretty easy. The harder part about the adjustment was being the coach's son playing on a team, because I'd never done that, in high school or anything else. And that was tough. Did you ever play for your dad?
Nah, no. He coached one game in like middle school, and he really didn't say much to me. He told me before the game, he said, listen, I'm going to be harder on you than all the other kids. And I kind of understood. And then at one point in the game, he got on me, and I could tell that it wasn't something I did wrong. And so he kind of braced me for it. I don't think I could have played for him based on, he was really like Bobby Knight. I mean, a lot of Bobby Knight qualities. He didn't physically grab people and stuff like that, but he was old school and demanding, and there was really no bullshit about it. It was gonna be his way, and that's the way it was. Yeah, he was very good, though.
Not an easy thing. Like, my first 2 years playing for my dad were really, really hard, really, really tough for me, because he was harder on me than the other people. And I struggled with it. Looking back, it probably helped me with my teammates a little, because, by the time I got like halfway through my sophomore year, I mean, I'd have guys like after practice in the locker room, like, yo, man, I don't know how you do it. Like, hang in there, you're playing okay, because he was so hard on me. And at the time, I didn't think of that like he might be helping me. I was just like, Jesus, I mean, this was terrible. But my last 2 years, I think I got used to it a little. Plus, he maybe chilled out just a little, and I wouldn't trade those for anything. And when you really look back on it, and you start to get to the point, I mean, my dad's 86, and you understand how quick all this goes. I had 4 years of college where I saw him every single day, man. Regardless of what happened on the court or anything else, that's 4 more years than most people have of seeing their parents every day. Wouldn't trade that in retrospect. Didn't appreciate it enough at the time, but I do now.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Who are the guys, Stan, that you can point to and be like, I learned from those guys. And same goes for coaches, staffs that you've been on in the league.
Besides Rex.
Yeah, me excluded.
Well, no, but I was just going to say it's innumerable, because I mean, and this sounds disingenuous, but it's not. I mean, almost everyone I coached in my time in the NBA, I learned stuff from. I mean, seriously, I mean, whether it was you running off screens and being able to balance up and get lift and be on, I mean, and to watch guys work on that stuff. Again, I would say more that first year than any other time, because it was all so new to me. Yeah. I mean, and look, I had coached 2 years as an assistant and a year as a head coach in the Big Ten, and we had Michael Finley.
Mike Finley, right.
Yeah. So I've been around good players, but not that number of good players in a gym. So, Rex, my first thing in Miami, we had this rookie camp when Pat first came in, right? And so these are guys who, they're not on a roster, and most of them aren't going to make it. They're trying to get it. It's right 2 weeks before the start of camp. They're trying to get like roster invites. There's 30 guys in the gym. The most talent I have ever seen at that point in my life in one gym that I've been a part of. And it's my first day, and I'm all pumped up, and we got this camp going on, and I'm excited. Like, wow, these players are great. We go to lunch after at Shula's Steakhouse in Miami Beach, and we're sitting there, and I go over with Scotty Robertson, and as soon as Pat sits down, here I am thinking, man, the talent in that gym. Scotty looks at Pat and said, well, there's nobody here that can play in the league. And I just went like, oh my God. And then we get to training camp, and that's before we got Alonzo, but it's Glenn Rice.
Yeah.
We had at that point, we weren't a real good NBA team, but it's the NBA. And I'm thinking, like, the best player I've coached up to that point is Michael Finley, and he was great. There's 15 of them out here right now.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up that year with Billy Owens and Walt Williams and, all kinds of talent. But,
it was mind-blowing, and that's when I had no real firsthand knowledge of the NBA. I mean, I'd learned a lot about it coming in from my brother, but every player on those teams taught me things. And I've learned watching guys' footwork as they roll to the basket with big men. I've watched guys be able to hold a spot, on the block.
I wanted to ask you that. Do you see the game? I can only imagine you see the game from the vantage of a point guard.
Yes.
I mean, I see it from the way I played it. Did it take time for you to kind of imagine what it's like playing the game with your back to the basket or to coach bigs? I mean, because it seems like there might be a bit of a learning curve there. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing: is I thought, even in college, there at that time anyway, and even still, I think more than the NBA, there was a lot of post play. So if you were going to coach, you had to coach that. And I think, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but you do have to learn to sort of teach everything to some degree. The problem when you get even to the major college level, but especially to the NBA level, especially early on, if I'm going to start saying stuff to big guys, especially, they're looking at me like,
yeah, right.
What are you talking about? Where even though everybody's a lot better player than you are, I mean, guards, wing guys, they'll at least listen to you.
Yeah, right.
The big guys are looking at you like, what the hell? And we had Bob McAdoo, so Bob could do all of that stuff. They're looking at me like you don't know anything. So I'd like to think I could teach all that, but I was also smart enough to know early on that there was a credibility issue. Though I will say this, as far as that goes, I was really, really nervous before my first day of training camp. I mean, really, really nervous. Like, I've been 14 years in college coaching and the whole thing, but everybody was so good. And now you got veteran guys and
Right.
Yeah, they're a lot smarter than the guys you coach in college. I don't mean
Yeah.
natively, not a higher IQ. They just have more experience.
Mhm.
And so I remember Pat saying to me, Stan, just do your thing. Just coach the way you've always coached. When they figure out you know what you're talking about, they'll listen to you. And I have carried that with me. I've said it to people I've brought into coaching and things like that. And NBA players for sure will do that. And that's why I've never had any doubt that a competent female coach could go into the NBA and be fine, because I think she would have, in a lot of cases, an easier time coaching men in the NBA than coaching men in college, because guys in the NBA are smarter, and what they'll figure out is she either knows what she's talking about or she doesn't. And once they know, hey, she knows what she's talking about, I don't think they care what color you are, what background you are, you know, what gender you are or anything else. If you can help me with my game, if you can help my team win games, I'm all ears. And it started with that piece of advice from Pat, but I've watched it over the years, and I think it's really true. I mean, you know, you get a guy that's been in the NBA 5, 6, 7 years and certainly beyond. I mean, they know, like, you're not going to fool them, number one.
Right. At high BS meter, you know, that, you know, all the guys basically have a doctorate in basketball or football or whatever it is. And right away, very quickly, they can tell incompetence, right? Or bullshit. And pro athletes don't put up with that very long, or not quietly anyway.
No, that's exactly right. And I've always thought this, and I've talked to other people about it too. And I certainly think, you know, more and more, like, the relationship with players is obviously paramount, the relationship you can have with your players. But I think if you really get down to it, and I've talked to a lot of guys, players, about this after I've coached them, at the end of the day, the relationship the players want most is a professional one too. Can you help my game so that my career goes further, I make more money and everything else? The fact that I'm a nice guy, really, okay, but that doesn't carry any weight. Can you help me? You know, and I think that's what people miss when they're talking about player relationships. Yes, you have to have a relationship, and I think at some level, players have to know that you give a damn about them as people, but they really want you to give a damn about their career. Yeah. Like, they're trying to make it. And whether it's a guy at the end who's trying to hang on, you know, for another couple of years, or a guy looking to try to get a bigger contract, or a rookie trying to make it coming in, they've got their goals, and they want to know you care about helping them toward those goals. That's the part of the relationship I think is most important. I think people, when they hear it, fans I'm talking about, hear that about player relationships, think it's all about, like, going out to dinner with guys or going out, you know, to a club with guys. Yeah. I mean, especially at my age, I don't know anybody who wants to hang out with me. Hell, most people my own age don't want to hang out with me, let alone guys in their 20s and 30s. So it's a basketball relationship. I mean, I know you heard it. I don't know if you remember it, but Pat Riley used to say all the time, the player-coach relationship is a business relationship designed to get a result. You know, he would always say, Nicky hired us both, and our jobs are to get a result for him. That's the relationship. That's what counts.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. Pat, it reminded me of something that has always stayed with me, and it was that year. We were, you know, it was later in the year, but I was playing well. I was healthy, you know, probably playing 38 minutes a night. You guys depended on me. And Pat played with my dad at Kentucky for a year. You know, they knew each other. They know each other. You know, Pat was my coach, though. He didn't treat me any different than any of the other players. But also, I remember us getting off the bus in Minnesota. We had a big game coming up, and, you know, Pat doesn't really hang with the players. I mean, that's not what he does. And so I guess he felt the need to tell me something. He asked me to come on the elevator with him up to my floor, and he put his arm around me. He said, I know I don't say much to you. He said, I just want you to know that I don't say a lot to the guys that I know are on top of what they're doing and are taking care of business. I try to spend more of my time with the guys that aren't. And I just want you to know that, that's the situation. And I couldn't appreciate it more. Honestly, I kind of felt like I had gone from being a pro who makes money to a professional. And kind of that Pat Riley acknowledged it to me, a guy who, he coached the Knicks teams, he had coached the Lakers teams, and everybody knows how, professional you have to take it to play for Pat. But that's always stuck with me. I'm glad that you brought me into that memory.
That's an interesting point. Like, just as a leader and a communicator, which he's a master of, and most coaches that make it to that level are, but to be able to tell the not squeaky wheel, hey, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And I'm over here oiling this wheel because it's got to keep us going, but I appreciate you. Because a lot of times that never happens, and people, don't feel appreciated. And that shows what a great communicator he is, and it stuck with you.
Well, and I also think, right, and I've always thought this, even going back before I got to the NBA, but being around my dad and some of his friends growing up and stuff, I mean, I think there's a fine line on all that stuff too, because, now it's sort of expected at a lot of levels. They want coaches who are just positive all the time. Well, positive's good, but I think you got to know what it means. And if I'm going to come in the locker room after every game and tell you, hey, good job, Rex, well, it sort of starts to lose meaning, because you play better sometimes than others. But if I'm saying good job all the time, well, and then also when you really have a good game, now what do I do? And I think with guys like Pat, and probably your father and my father, the old school guys, like, the one thing you knew, you would get far more criticism than you would praise. Yeah. But when they praised you, they meant it. And you did something good. They weren't just throwing out idle BS to make you feel good. It was, damn, I love the way you competed tonight, or I love the toughness you're showing, and it meant something. And I think now a lot of times, we're giving out verbal participation trophies after games, like, hey, great job. Really? And you know what? A lot of times in the NBA, especially, players know. Like, what are you kidding me? I sucked.
Yeah.
I was 3 for 17 with 7 turnovers. You're going to tell me good job? I'm just happy I still have a job.
Exactly. Hey, I will let you go here before long. How freaky weird is it watching Zion from the sideline for 7 months?
That wasn't long.
As an athlete, have you seen? I mean, you've seen everybody up close in the last 30 years. Who do you compare him to athletically?
There's nobody like him. And I've heard the Barkley comparisons, but Barkley didn't handle the ball out on the perimeter the way he did. He plays a little bit like Giannis, but he's not nearly as tall, and he's even stronger and more powerful. I mean, we probably throw the word unique around too much, but he's literally unique. I mean, there's no one like him. And it was both challenging and exhilarating coaching him and trying to figure out everything you could do to him. And the biggest disappointment for me in losing my job, quite honestly, there was not being able to continue on with him, because you just start to scratch the surface of what he can do. And, we started turning him more into a point guard than a power forward. And he's running pick and rolls, handling the ball. He's running pick and rolls, setting screens. And he's a great kid and a competitor and the whole thing. I mean, man, he's just one of a kind. And so you can't, the hard part was you can't say like, okay, so if I've got a guy who's running off screens to shoot, like you, Reggie Miller guy, I got other people I can watch and get ideas as a coach. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's run this.
Yeah.
Zion's on his own. That was fun because unlike most coaches, I mean, there's nothing new, and there wasn't with him either. I mean, there's nothing new. You just steal from everybody else. Mm-hmm. But with him, you did have to be a little bit more creative because his abilities demanded it. And man, it was exciting. It was challenging. And, you know, the opportunity to play even a small role in the development of somebody like that, who's not only really talented. I've been around a lot of great players. And I had Dwayne Wade his rookie year and stuff. And, you know, that was unbelievable. But he was a, you know, conventional, let's say, a conventional player, just a great one. Zion's both great and totally unconventional, just a different guy. And where he can get to is, I don't know. Like, I really don't know what his ceiling is. I mean, I think watching him in the gym with Fred Vincent every day after practice, I think he's got the ability to become a good shooter. I don't mean just passive. I mean, I think he can become a good shooter. And if he does become a good shooter,
that's just frightening.
Just forget it. Now, the challenge is going to be with all that power and jumping ability and all that explosiveness, it's hard to stay healthy because, you know, I mean, like every time he hits the floor, comes back down, he's coming down with force. And so on his joints and everything else. And that's going to be a challenge. I mean, look, I used to say when Derrick Rose was going through those injuries, I was in Orlando and, you know, his MVP year and stuff. And he got 2 major injuries against us. I remember saying to our strength coach, like, the athletes are almost getting too good for their own health. And we see it in baseball. Everybody throws 100 miles an hour now, and every single pitcher is going to undergo Tommy John surgery at some point. They've surpassed, these guys are so athletic, they've surpassed the limits of their own bodies. And that's what I worry about with Zion. He's almost too athletic for his body to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, you worry about the limits of the human, and he's the number one. People worry about not being able to see him play like Bo Jackson. You know, just a freak of freaks and an anomaly. And I mean, forget about a hip. Every time he goes up, I'm afraid he's just going to explode. Just boom. Yeah.
Combust.
Flesh everywhere. He's so powerful. Did you ever see a moment, because you see so many, but was there one that sticks out in a practice where you were like, what the hell was that?
You know what? Every single game, at some point in the game, I would just turn around to my assistants and go, oh, shit. Like, you know, and I've done that a lot in the NBA sometimes.
But that's not easy to do. It doesn't happen every night in the NBA.
No, but with him, literally every night there was one play where you would just go like, oh, shit. Like, how did he do that? Like, he'd take on the whole team going to the basket. And the other thing is he's such a quick second jumper. So, you know, he shot over 60%. 27 points a game, the most points ever averaged. If he's only 20 years old, that's the most points ever averaged by anybody shooting over 60%. Because usually those 60% guys are averaging 10, 12 because they don't shoot. That guy's averaging 27 at 60%. But when he did miss, what would happen is he'd drive the ball to the basket and somebody would try to go up vertically and he would hit him and they'd go back like 10 feet. And so he'd miss and then he'd tip in his own shot because that guy's like out of the play. Like
he's gone 1 for 2 there and lowered his percentage.
That's exactly right. I mean, the guy's played 85 games in his career. I mean, this was basically his rookie year and the stuff that he was doing. was
Well,
just
and but he made a jump. Other guys, Lonzo Ball made a jump. I mean, he and I don't know your relationship with Lonzo. All I know is I started watching him years ago in high school out in LA, and his shot was as bad as shots can be coming in. It was as bad as Rajon Rondo's was. It was way worse than Jason's was coming in.
Oh yeah.
And
not as bad as Chuck Hayes.
Chuck never really came around, but Chuck was one of my brother's favorite guys.
Oh, we love Chuck. He's our Kentucky guy.
Yeah, he's nothing but love. But he walked on a free throw, says Allen Iverson.
Yeah, that's right. But Lonzo, the jump he made, Stan, is amazing this past year. I mean, not only as a shooter, but just his confidence. He's a real pro at this point, right?
Well, and it's because he's a real pro, Rex. Like, he really puts in the time. Like,
and a good young man, I think, right?
Fantastic. Fabulous. Yeah. Fabulous. I mean, as good a person as you can be around. And Fred Vinson is an unbelievable shooting coach and spent time with he and Brandon Ingram. And if you look at what's happened to both their percentages, and then he just started working with Zion a lot last year. And I mean, Fred's as good as I've seen.
Wow.
And so, look, I mean, one of the frustrating things for me getting fired is, I mean, I think virtually everybody that returned from the year before got better.
Yeah.
Everybody got better. And, it wasn't enough. So it's frustrating. But I'm fortunate I had the year I had with those guys, all really good people. And, Lonzo will go on and do good things because he wants to be good. He's coachable and he's accountable. Like, Lonzo knows when Lonzo doesn't play well, like, which is what we're talking about. You're not going to come tell Lonzo good things. He knows. Like, he'll just, even when you don't say anything, like, he'll walk by you at the end and go, man, my bad. I sucked tonight. Like, and I think most NBA players know that stuff. And some don't, but most of them do. And Lonzo's really holds himself to a high standard. That's
great. I know I know you're going back to TNT this year. You're going to do games I'm excited about that. Are you done coaching?
I would say most likely. You never say never on anything, but you probably understand this as well as anybody having grown up in a coaching household, but it's tough on the wives, especially, and my wife, made the move to Detroit willingly, enjoyed her time there. She made the move to New Orleans supportively, not as excitedly. And now the way that went, she has basically said, like, if you want to coach, I'm just not going. I'm going to stay right here. And you go do your thing, unless what she wants me to do if I get the coaching bug again is go coach overseas, like in Greece or Italy,
there you go,
something like that. Then she's all in. Another NBA job, she's go ahead. But and a lot of coaches do it that way. A lot of coaches do it that way, and their wives stay in whatever their home base is. But that's not something I would ever do.
Yeah, I'm going to take that as a hard maybe.
Yeah, I would say. But the other thing is, quite honestly, I just don't know. I've had 4 jobs in the NBA. I'm 62 years old. That's not the way coaching jobs are trending at this point. That's not who people are looking for. And this last one would hurt in that regard a lot too. I think that one, just being fair, I think that, reputationally, you get fired in 1 year. With some talented young guys and stuff. I don't think that it gave a huge boost to the reputation, and you get labeled, right, as not being able to relate to today's player and everything else. And that may be fair. I mean,
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair.
I mean, I don't know if it is or not, but listen, at the end of the day, coming from where I came from, I mean,
oh, come on. What a career. What a life.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm grateful. I've had a lot of years as a head coach. I don't know. There's maybe 35, 40 guys in the history of the NBA who've coached as I have. and look, when I got out of college, I knew I wanted to coach. And I thought, man, if I could just get a good Division III job somewhere. I was in school in Western New York, and there was this private school in Utica, New York, Hamilton College. And the dude had winning year after winning year. And in the summer, he had a great camp and he made money. And I said, man, if I could ever get the Hamilton College job, like I'd have it made. This journey, like I got lucky at so many places, and you have to have luck. I don't give a damn what anybody says. You have to get breaks. I did. And like, it's been a good year. It's been enough. And now my thing is I've got a nice contract at TNT, and I'm just going to try not to get fired in 1 year. I am going to try to have me on again this year, this time next year. I still want to be employed. That's hey, I'll tell you how bad it is, right? So I have an exhibition game next Tuesday, so the 5th, and then our first 2 games are the 19th and the 21st of October. Our first 2 regular season games with TNT. So I'll have done 3 games before I get to the 1-year anniversary when I was hired in New Orleans.
All right, Stan, we're going to let you get out. But first, favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, well done.
I mean, it's an easy one, right? I mean, it's a gimme. But
just watched it the other night.
If you're flipping channels and it's on, and it's always on. If you're flipping channels, you stop right there.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw Andy Dufresne.
One of the last questions, front row center to see anyone in history, whether it be a musician or a speaker or sports, dead or alive, front row center, you get to sit there and take it in.
Well, I'd go to hear a speaker. That would be first thing. But who? I mean, man, I think that 5 people come to my mind.
Right.
I mean, Lincoln, okay, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, John F. Kennedy, and Barack Obama. Sit right there and listen to them for hours, any of them. And you almost hate to come up with things like that because you're leaving out a bunch of people. But I would do that before I'd go to watch any event, I think.
Yeah, same.
If it was a band or a singer or a group from all time, what about an entertainment like that? Who would it be?
Well, I mean, the greatest singer of all time, Aretha Franklin. I got
nicely done
in Detroit. So I had met her when I was in Miami. We knew a security guard at one of the concerts who worked backstage, and so he came out and brought us backstage. I met her, got my picture taken, and the whole thing. But in 2016, we were at a fundraiser in Michigan for Hillary Clinton, and so it was a big dollar fundraiser, and the guy comes by, and he was the Pistons owned 3 concert venues there. And so the guy who ran their concert venue said, "Hey man, I got a surprise for you tonight." He knew I loved Aretha. And Aretha was there. So you talk about front row center. I mean, we were in this dude's living room. I mean, I was 20 feet away. She was right there. And then we did a similar thing. So she would be my choice. But we did a similar thing here at a fundraiser in Miami where I was even closer. My wife and I were even closer to John Legend. We were like 20 feet away. And I mean, like when I get in those things too, I'm not even trying to act cool. Like I'm the fanboy. I mean, like
I am too.
I mean, like, yeah. I'm not trying to act like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. No. This is unbelievable. That's Aretha. That's John Legend. Oh my God, they're right there. Like, I'm not trying to be cool. So Aretha, and then my favorite band, if I had to go to a band, was Earth, Wind, and Fire.
So,
yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well done. Stan, thanks, buddy. Come back and do it. We'll do it again, maybe year anniversary where you'll still be back at TNT.
Sounds good. I hope I run into you this year.
We will. Thanks, buddy. Love you.
All right.
Thanks,
See you,
Coach.
Josh.
Well, Josh, how about Stan?
Wow. He is
The best, right?
what a positive guy. Stops everything, all the firings, whatever. He loves to laugh at himself, take it in, go. I mean, seems like a very mentally healthy person. We talked a lot about mental health. He seems like he can roll with the punches, learn to do it early, with his father and his family seems cool too.
Oh, yeah.
His wife's like, I'll go there, but not there.
Yeah, no, brilliant guy. One of my favorites. You said so positive. That would not be probably the adjective to describe him, or the word to describe him as reputationally as a coach. Probably not. He can be direct and hard, but just like he said there, and it reminds me of something my dad said growing up. I came home one time complaining about my coach on my ass or something, and my dad looked at me and said, "Rex, hard to become a great player if you can't take an ass chewing from time to time." And I went, okay,
Well,
all right.
Well,
And that's, yeah, but that's sort of Stan's philosophy too. And he said, pros don't want to be told good game when they know they sucked. Lonzo Ball has known he sucked when he sucked immediately following every game from the time he was 5, because his dad was telling him, right? You suck today. And so he knows. The thing about pros, and Stan said it so perfectly, is it's just like Josh, acting. It's any profession. You want to do it well, and you want to be led. You want to be coached and taught how to be better. You don't want to just stand pat. So what a great guy. I'm disappointed that he's not with the Pelicans. I thought it was a good fit. And Dave Griffin, president GM, one of my good friends, basketball world is a weird world. Episode 26. That one's in the books. We got another one coming up next week. Same time, same place. The Rex Chapman Show with super cool Josh Hopkins on basketballnews.com, powered by basketballnews.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe.